One afternoon, while preparing a large batch of bread for the market, she found herself thinking about the small gestures that had come to mean so much. He had begun helping with errands, bringing fresh ingredients, and offering quiet encouragement. Each act was simple, yet they accumulated into a profound sense of care that she could not ignore. She began to realize that connection was built not on grand declarations, but on consistent, thoughtful actions that reflected genuine concern. They started spending more time together outside the market, taking walks through the town and along the riverbank. The world felt calmer when they were together, the chatter of the town fading into the background as they shared stories and observations. She found herself laughing more freely, the tension that had always lingered in her body loosening in his presence. He was patient, never rushing, never demanding, simply offering companionship and understanding. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, he suggested they try a small picnic by the river. She hesitated at first, unsure if she wanted to venture into unfamiliar territory. But the warmth of his voice and the trust she had begun to feel nudged her forward. She packed a basket with bread, cheese, and preserves, items she knew he would enjoy, and they walked together to a quiet spot along the water. The gentle lapping of the river and the soft rustle of leaves created a perfect backdrop for their conversation. During the picnic, they shared memories from their pasts, discussing childhood experiences, favorite meals, and lessons learned. She felt comfortable speaking openly, and he listened attentively, his presence offering a sense of safety and validation. She realized that he was not just interested in her cooking or her daily routines, but in the person she was at her core. This realization deepened her trust and allowed her to feel emotions she had long suppressed. However, the shadow of doubt sometimes crept in. There were moments when she questioned whether it was right to feel happiness again, whether opening her heart could lead to disappointment or hurt. She confronted these feelings quietly, acknowledging the past, while allowing herself to explore the present. The man, without overt pressure, provided a steady presence, his consistency and patience acting as a quiet reassurance that she could navigate these emotions safely. As autumn approached, the town held a small festival celebrating the harvest. She was invited to participate, sharing her baked goods and homemade preserves. She hesitated, worried about the attention and potential scrutiny. But he encouraged her gently, reminding her that her talents were a gift to the community and a way to bring joy to others. She decided to participate, seeing it as an opportunity to step beyond her comfort zone while staying true to herself. The festival was vibrant, filled with laughter, music, and the scent of fresh food. She set up her stall carefully, arranging bread and preserves to catch the eye and delight the senses. The man stood nearby, assisting where needed and offering quiet support. As people tasted her creations and praised her work, she felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond mere skill. She realized that sharing her cooking was also a way of sharing herself, her heart, and her resilience. Throughout the day, their interactions drew subtle attention from the community. Neighbors watched the gentle exchanges, the shared smiles, and the quiet attentiveness he showed. Some whispered about the possibility of a deeper connection. But she remained focused on the present moment, appreciating the warmth and kindness without rushing toward labels or expectations. She discovered that love and trust could grow quietly. Nurtured by patience and understanding later, they walked together through the festival grounds, enjoying the music and the sights. She felt a lightness in her step, a sense of joy that had been absent for years. The man pointed out small details, from the way the sunlight hit a particular tree to the laughter of children playing nearby. These observations, simple yet thoughtful, made her feel seen and valued. She realized that the bond they shared was built on mutual respect, appreciation, and a gentle understanding that allowed both of them to be fully themselves. That evening, back in her kitchen, she reflected on the day and the experiences that had unfolded. The memories of past grief were still present, but they no longer overshadowed the happiness she felt. She understood that life could hold both sorrow and joy, that the heart could heal and still open to new possibilities. Cooking remained a central part of her life, but it had become a way to connect, to share love, and to experience the subtle joys of companionship. The days continued with a rhythm of preparation, sharing, and quiet reflection. She tended her garden, baked bread, and created preserves, always mindful of the care she put into her work. He continued to be a steady presence, helping, encouraging, and simply being there without expectation. Their connection grew slowly, grounded in authenticity, patience, and the shared experiences that made each day meaningful. As winter approached, she felt a deeper sense of trust and comfort. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, moments of doubt and hesitation, but she felt prepared to face them with the support of someone who truly understood her. Their relationship was not defined by grand gestures or declarations, but by the small, consistent acts of care and attention that revealed the depth of their bond. She allowed herself to embrace the warmth and connection. Confident that it was real and enduring, the evenings were filled with quiet conversation, shared meals, and the simple pleasure of each other's company. She felt a growing sense of hope and anticipation for the future, not in a rush to define what lay ahead, but in the enjoyment of each moment as it came. Cooking, gardening, and daily routines continued to provide grounding and joy. But now, they were complemented by the companionship of someone who saw her, valued her, and cared deeply for her well-being. It was a gentle, steady happiness, a promise of new beginnings nurtured by patience, understanding, and shared affection. The morning was soft and bright. Sunlight spilling into the kitchen as she began preparing her daily bread. The aroma filled the air, warm and comforting. She had grown accustomed to these quiet moments, but lately they carried an added sense of anticipation. The man had become a steady presence in her life, his visits and shared moments bringing a gentle joy she had not felt in years. She moved around the kitchen with ease, her thoughts occasionally drifting to the ways he had supported her. The small acts that showed care and attention. That day, he visited as usual, stopping by her stall at the market. They exchanged greetings and talked about the weather, the town, and the latest harvest. Their conversations had become deeper, moving from casual topics to personal stories and shared reflections. She found herself opening up more, revealing thoughts and feelings she had kept private for so long. He listened patiently, offering understanding without judgment. Creating a space where she could feel safe to express herself, he suggested they try something new together, a small cooking project that would challenge them and bring enjoyment. She hesitated, unsure if she was ready to step beyond her usual routine. But the trust and comfort she felt with him encouraged her to agree. They decided to prepare a large meal for the community, something that would bring people together and allow them to share their love of food. She spent days planning, selecting recipes, and thinking about how to make the experience both enjoyable and meaningful. As they worked together in the kitchen, she noticed the care he took in assisting her, helping with chopping, stirring, and arranging ingredients. He asked questions about her techniques and shared his own observations. Creating a partnership that felt natural and balanced, the time spent together strengthened their bond, and she felt a growing admiration for his thoughtfulness, patience, and quiet strength. It was a connection built not on urgency or drama, but on shared effort and mutual respect. The day of the meal arrived, and the small community gathered to participate. She felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, hoping that the dishes would be enjoyed and that the effort they had put in would be appreciated. The man stood beside her, helping with organization and offering quiet encouragement. As people tasted the food, complimenting the flavors and presentation, she felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. Cooking had always been her passion, but now it had become a bridge to connection and shared joy. Throughout the event, she observed the man interacting with others, showing kindness, humor, and genuine interest. She noticed the subtle ways he supported her, managing small details and ensuring the experience went smoothly. She realized that his presence extended beyond mere companionship. He was attentive, considerate, and fully invested in making the day meaningful for everyone. The trust she had developed in him deepened, and she felt her heart opening more fully to the possibilities of their relationship. After the event, they walked together through the quiet streets, the sky painted with shades of sunset. She reflected on the joy of the day, the laughter, the compliments, and the satisfaction of sharing something she loved. The man listened as she spoke, offering thoughtful responses and gentle encouragement. She felt a warmth in his presence, a sense of security and understanding that made her feel valued and appreciated. The morning sunlight filled the small kitchen as she moved quietly around the room. The pots and pans were lined up neatly, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. She had been alone for a long time, but cooking gave her comfort and a sense of purpose. She remembered the days when laughter filled the house, and the table was always full of family and friends. Those days felt distant now, like a dream that belonged to someone else. Yet she continued to prepare meals with care, pouring love into every dish. It was her way of remembering the good times and keeping herself moving forward. She had learned to live with the quiet moments and the empty rooms. Every morning, she woke up early, made her breakfast, and went to the small garden behind the house to pick fresh herbs and vegetables. The garden was a place of peace, a place where she could think and feel the warmth of the sun on her skin. She cared for the plants as if they were old friends, talking to them softly and making sure they had enough water. Life was simple, and in that simplicity, she found a kind of happiness that did not need anyone else to complete it. One day the town had a small market, and she decided to go and sell some of her homemade bread and preserves. She carried a basket filled with fresh loaves and jars of jam, walking slowly down the street, greeting neighbors as she passed. People waved and smiled, but she noticed the glances that lingered a little too long. The whispers of curiosity about the woman who had lost so much, yet still carried herself with grace. She felt a little self-conscious, but did not let it stop her from sharing her work. She set up her stall and arranged the bread neatly, hoping that someone would taste it and enjoy it as much as she enjoyed making it. The market was lively, with children running around and the smell of fresh produce in the air. She watched families gather and felt a little pang of longing for the days when her own family had been around. But she pushed the feeling aside and focused on the people who came to her stall. A few stopped and tasted the bread, nodding with appreciation, and she smiled quietly to herself. It was a small pleasure, but it meant a lot. She loved seeing the simple joy on people's faces when they tasted something good. It reminded her that there was still sweetness in life, even after sorrow. Among the visitors to the market was a man who had recently moved to the town. He walked slowly, taking in the sights and sounds, curious about the new place he called home. When he came to her stall, he paused, noticing the care in the way she arranged the bread. He asked if he could try a piece, and when he tasted it, his eyes widened slightly. The flavors were rich and comforting, as if each bite told a story of patience and love. He smiled and said he had never tasted anything like it, and she felt a little warmth in her chest. Pleased that her efforts were appreciated, they talked for a few minutes, exchanging polite words about the market and the produce. He asked where she had learned to bake like this, and she told him it was something her family had always done. Baking was a tradition, a way to bring people together, and it had always been a part of her life. He listened carefully, genuinely interested, and she found herself enjoying the conversation more than she expected. It was rare for her to meet someone who could talk about simple things with such attention and curiosity. The man returned to the market a few times over the next weeks, sometimes stopping at her stall, sometimes just walking by and greeting her. Each time, they talked a little longer, sharing stories about their lives in the town. She learned that he had moved from a distant city, seeking a slower pace and a place where he could feel connected to the community. He had a quiet strength, a calm presence that made her feel safe and comfortable. There was no rush, no pressure, just a gentle understanding that grew with each encounter. She noticed herself looking forward to his visits, feeling a little excitement that she had not felt in a long time. Cooking had always been her world, her way of expressing care and keeping her life in order. But now it seemed that the world was opening up in a small, meaningful way. She still carried her grief and the memories of loss, but they no longer dominated every thought. There was room for something new, something unexpected. She allowed herself to feel it slowly, cautiously. One afternoon, he invited her to a small community gathering at the town hall. She hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to participate in such events, but he reassured her that it would be informal, just neighbors coming together to share food and stories. She agreed, deciding that it might be good for her to connect with the community in a different way. She prepared a few dishes, carefully wrapping them to bring along, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. At the gathering, she was met with friendly faces and warm smiles. People complimented her cooking, asking questions, and showing genuine interest. She felt a sense of belonging, a feeling she had not experienced since before her loss. The man stayed close by, introducing her to others and making sure she felt included. She noticed the kindness in his eyes and the ease of his presence. For the first time in many years, she felt that perhaps life could hold moments of joy again. Small moments that added up to something meaningful. After the gathering, they walked together toward the market square, talking quietly about the day and the people they had met. The conversation flowed easily, and she realized that she was laughing more than she had in a long time. He made observations about the town that were thoughtful and often amusing, and she found herself enjoying his company in a way that surprised her. There was no hurry, no expectation, just a shared moment that felt comfortable and genuine. As they parted ways that evening, she felt a strange mix of gratitude and hope. She returned home, thinking about the day, the laughter, and the simple pleasure of sharing her cooking with others. She realized that while her past had shaped her and brought pain, it did not define the possibility of new connections. Life was continuing, slowly, gently, and she could be a part of it in ways she had not allowed herself to consider before. She spent the next days tending her garden, baking bread and preparing meals with renewed energy. Each loaf, each jar of preserves, became a small act of love. Not just for herself, but for the people she met and the man who had begun to enter her life. She did not rush or force anything, allowing the rhythm of her days to guide her. There was a quiet beauty in this, a sense that life, despite loss, could still hold warmth, kindness, and unexpected moments of connection. The man continued to visit the market, and their conversations grew naturally longer and deeper. They shared stories of their childhoods, their experiences, and their hopes. She found that she could speak openly without fear of judgment, and he listened with genuine care. There was no need to fill the silence with words. Their presence together was enough. She began to realize that sometimes connections did not need to be hurried or forced, that they could grow slowly and steadily, nurtured by simple acts of kindness and attention. Evenings were spent in her small kitchen, reflecting on the day and planning for the next. She thought about the people she met, the conversations she had, and the gentle presence of the man who seemed to understand her without needing explanations. She allowed herself to imagine small possibilities, little joys that might come from sharing life with someone who appreciated her for who she was. It was a quiet hope, delicate and unspoken, but it brought a lightness to her days. As the sun set over the town, casting golden light across the rooftops, she felt a sense of peace she had not known in years. The past remained with her, as it should, but it no longer overshadowed the present. There was room for new experiences, for laughter, for connection, and for the warmth that came from sharing simple pleasures with another person. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, and felt ready to continue her journey, step by step, day by day. With an open heart and a renewed sense of possibility, she woke early again, the sun spilling light across the kitchen floor, the smell of fresh herbs mixed with the warmth of bread baking in the oven. She moved with quiet purpose, her hands skilled and practiced. Cooking had become more than a routine. It was a way to connect with herself and the world around her. The thought of the man who had shown interest in her baking brought a gentle warmth to her heart. She did not know where it would lead. She felt a spark of curiosity and hope she had not felt in a long time. He came to the market that morning, walking slowly along the stalls, taking in the familiar sights and sounds. When he reached her stall, he greeted her with a smile that made her heart beat a little faster. They exchanged pleasantries about the weather and the produce, but their conversations soon turned to cooking. He asked questions about her recipes, how she learned to bake so well, and what inspired her flavors. She answered carefully, enjoying the interest he showed, feeling proud that someone appreciated the effort and love she put into her work. Over the next few weeks, he visited regularly, sometimes buying bread, sometimes just stopping to talk. Their conversations grew longer and more personal. They shared stories about their childhoods, their favorite meals, and memories that shaped who they were. She began to feel comfortable around him, noticing that his presence brought a sense of calm she had almost forgotten existed. There was no rush, no pressure, just quiet understanding and genuine interest in each other's lives. One day he asked if she would consider teaching a small group of neighbors how to bake. She hesitated, unsure if she wanted to take on such responsibility, but he reassured her that it would be informal, just people who wanted to learn and share a few hours together. She agreed, thinking it might be a way to feel more connected to the community and to share something she loved. She spent the next few days preparing, selecting recipes, and thinking about how to make the experience enjoyable for everyone. When the day arrived, a small group gathered in her kitchen, curious and eager to learn. She guided them patiently, showing each step and offering tips with care. The man stood nearby, helping where needed, encouraging the participants and quietly observing her with admiration. She noticed the way he looked at her when she explained a recipe, the way his eyes followed her hands as she kneaded dough or stirred a pot of sauce. It was a look of respect and appreciation that made her feel seen and valued. The baking session went smoothly, filled with laughter, questions, and the delightful smells of fresh food. She watched the participants taste the results of their efforts, smiling as they expressed delight. The man helped clean up afterward, and they shared a quiet moment in the kitchen, talking about the day and the small joys it brought. She felt a connection forming that went beyond casual friendship. Something gentle and meaningful that was new and unfamiliar, yet comforting, as days turned into weeks. He continued to visit, and their bond grew naturally. Sometimes he would bring ingredients or small gifts, thoughtful gestures that showed he was paying attention to the little things she enjoyed. They started taking walks together through the town, sharing observations about the gardens, the shops, and the people they met. She found herself talking about her dreams and fears in a way she had not done in years. And he listened without judgment, offering encouragement and understanding. One afternoon, he invited her to a picnic in the fields outside town. She was hesitant at first, worried about stepping too far outside her comfort zone. Something in his tone made her feel safe. She agreed, bringing along a basket of her cooking, carefully packed with bread, cheese, and homemade preserves. When they arrived at the field, the sunlight warmed the grass, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers. They sat together, sharing the food and talking quietly, enjoying the simple pleasure of being in each other's company. During the picnic, she noticed the way he seemed to notice the small details, the way he complimented her cooking without exaggeration, the way he asked thoughtful questions about her life. She felt a growing trust, a sense that he genuinely cared about her and not just the meals she prepared. For the first time in many years, she allowed herself to feel relaxed and content, appreciating the moment without worry or guilt. After the picnic, they walked slowly back to town, the conversation flowing naturally. She felt a sense of ease she had not felt in a long time. She realized that her feelings for him were becoming more than simple friendship. She was cautious, aware of her past and the grief she still carried. But she could not deny the warmth and happiness he brought into her life. It was a quiet, gentle feeling that grew with each shared moment and each thoughtful gesture. The community began to notice their interactions, and neighbors would occasionally comment on how well they seemed to get along. She felt a mix of embarrassment and pride, but she did not let it affect her. The man was consistent, patient, and respectful, and she trusted him in a way she had not trusted anyone for years. Their connection was slow to develop, but that was part of its strength, built on understanding, shared interests, and quiet appreciation. One evening, after a long day of baking and gardening, she found herself thinking about him more than usual. The memories of past loss were still present, but they no longer dominated her thoughts. She allowed herself to imagine small possibilities, gentle hopes for the future, and the idea that someone could care for her in a way that was kind, patient, and sincere. She did not rush these thoughts, letting them grow naturally, like the herbs in her garden. Nurtured by attention and care, he continued to show thoughtfulness in small ways. helping with errands, bringing fresh ingredients, and offering support without expectation. She appreciated these gestures, not because they demanded gratitude, but because they reflected his genuine interest in her well-being. They shared quiet evenings together, sometimes baking, sometimes just talking, always in a comfortable, unhurried way. She realized that her heart was opening slowly, cautiously. But with a growing sense of trust and affection, their friendship deepened into something more, a subtle bond that was recognized in the small actions, the gentle smiles, and the shared moments of quiet understanding. She felt safe to express herself, to share her thoughts and feelings, and to enjoy the presence of someone who genuinely cared. It was a new chapter in her life, built not on urgency or drama, but on patience, respect, and the warmth that came from true connection. She began to look forward to their time together. Feeling excitement and curiosity without fear or pressure, cooking remained central to her life, but it became a way to share love and joy, not just a personal comfort. She noticed the little ways he appreciated her efforts, from the careful way he handled her food to the sincere compliments he offered. These moments were small but significant, building a foundation of trust and affection that felt steady and enduring. As the days passed, she realized that her life was changing in subtle ways. The quiet routine she had maintained for years was now filled with gentle anticipation and the warmth of companionship. She was not rushing into anything, but she allowed herself to feel the happiness that came from connection, laughter, and shared experiences. Each day brought small joys, whether in the garden, the kitchen, or simply walking together through the town. And she cherished these moments deeply. Evenings were spent reflecting on the day, thinking about the conversations, the laughter, and the quiet presence of the man who had become an important part of her life. She felt a sense of balance, a harmony between honoring her past and embracing the possibilities of the present. She understood that grief and joy could coexist, that life could hold sorrow and happiness at the same time, and that it was possible to open her heart again without forgetting what she had lost as she closed her eyes at night. She felt a gentle hope, a sense of anticipation for the days to come. She did not know where this connection would lead, but she was ready to experience it fully, with patience and an open heart. Cooking, gardening, and daily routines continued to ground her, but they were now complemented by the warmth and companionship of someone who appreciated her, respected her, and cared deeply for her well-being. It was a quiet happiness, steady and real, and she welcomed it into her life with gratitude and hope. The morning air was crisp as she stepped into her garden, the smell of damp earth and fresh herbs filling her senses. She had learned to enjoy the quiet moments alone, but recently those moments had taken on a new dimension. She found herself thinking about him, about the way he listened, the way he seemed to notice the small details in her life. She did not rush these thoughts, but she could not deny the subtle warmth they brought. He came to the market that day as usual, greeting her with a soft smile. Their conversations had become a daily comfort, and he had begun to enter the rhythms of her life in gentle ways. She noticed that he seemed to be looking for ways to share experiences with her without overstepping boundaries. He asked about the garden, about her bread, and about the preserves she made, showing a quiet curiosity and genuine interest that touched her deeply. As weeks passed, the bond they shared began to face gentle challenges. She felt the lingering presence of her grief, moments when memories of the past brought sadness and hesitation. She wondered if it was fair to allow herself to feel joy when so much had been lost. The man, unaware of these moments at first, noticed subtle changes in her demeanor and approached with care, offering support without pressure. His patience helped her feel safe in exploring these emotions without fear. The community also played a role in testing. Friends and neighbors would occasionally comment on the closeness of their interactions, some with curiosity, others with gentle concern. She felt a mix of embarrassment and worry about appearances, but she realized that she needed to follow her own heart rather than the opinions of others. He stood by her quietly, not needing to justify their growing friendship, but offering reassurance through presence and kindness. In the following days, their connection continued to grow naturally. They spent mornings baking, afternoons tending the garden, and evenings talking quietly. Each day brought small moments of intimacy and understanding, moments that were not rushed or forced, but simply lived and appreciated. She noticed the consistency of his support, the subtle ways he anticipated her needs, and the genuine interest he took in her life. It was a kind of companionship that she had not known for years, and it brought a sense of comfort and hope. One evening, while preparing a simple dinner together, he expressed admiration for the way she managed her life, the care she put into her cooking, and the thoughtfulness she showed toward others. She felt a gentle pride, realizing that her efforts were recognized and valued. Their conversation turned to dreams for the future, small hopes and plans that felt attainable and real. She spoke of simple joys like expanding her garden, experimenting with new recipes, and sharing meals with friends and neighbors. He listened with interest, offering support and encouragement, reinforcing the sense of partnership and shared vision as the season changed. The days grew shorter and cooler, but their relationship continued to blossom. She found herself anticipating his visits, looking forward to the shared moments of laughter, conversation, and quiet companionship. Cooking remained a central part of her life, but it had become intertwined with the warmth and affection she felt for him. Each loaf of bread, each dish prepared, carried not just her skill, but the joy of sharing with someone who genuinely cared. One afternoon, while arranging flowers from her garden, she reflected on how much her life had changed. The past grief was still present, a quiet memory that shaped her, but it no longer dominated her thoughts. She had learned to live with it, to honor it, while allowing space for new experiences and emotions. The man had become a symbol of this new chapter, someone who brought patience, understanding, and kindness into her life without demanding or rushing her heart. They began planning small outings together, trips to nearby towns, walks through the countryside, and visits to friends. Each experience was shared with care and thoughtfulness, strengthening their connection and creating memories that would last. She found joy in the simplicity of these moments, the shared laughter, the quiet conversations, and the gentle presence that made her feel safe and cherished. It was a love that grew organically, built on respect, understanding, and the everyday acts of care that formed the foundation of a lasting bond. As winter approached, they spent evenings by the fireplace, baking, talking, and enjoying the comfort of home. She felt a deeper sense of trust and security, knowing that their connection was genuine and enduring. The past no longer felt like a weight, but rather a part of her story that had shaped her into the resilient, caring person she had become. She allowed herself to embrace the happiness and warmth that now filled her days, recognizing that it was a gift earned through patience, openness, and mutual respect. The community continued to notice their bond, offering quiet approval and support. She appreciated their acceptance, but remained focused on the genuine connection she shared with him. It was a relationship that did not need external validation. It's built instead on shared experiences, understanding, and the subtle but powerful ways they cared for each other. She felt grateful for this new chapter, a period of her life that combined the richness of her past with the promise of joy and companionship. Evenings were filled with reflection, gratitude, and planning for the days ahead. She continued to cook, tending her garden, share her skills with neighbors and friends. But now there was a sense of fulfillment and joy that extended beyond her own efforts. The man remained a constant presence, offering support, encouragement, and companionship in ways that felt natural and meaningful. Their relationship had grown from simple beginnings into a profound connection, one that respected the past while embracing the possibilities of the future. As she closed the kitchen for the night and prepared for rest, she felt a deep sense of contentment. The days ahead held uncertainty, as life always does, but she felt ready to face them with courage, love, and hope. The bond she shared with him was a source of strength, comfort, and joy, a reminder that even after loss, the heart could heal, grow, and experience new love. She allowed herself to rest with this knowledge, feeling gratitude for the gentle, steady happiness that now filled her life and looking forward to the shared moments yet to come. The morning was calm. sunlight streaming through the kitchen window and casting a warm glow across the countertops. She moved quietly, preparing bread and preserves, her hands skilled and steady. Cooking had always been her way of finding peace, but now it held an added meaning. Each dish she prepared carried not only flavor, but also love, care, and the subtle joy of sharing life with someone who understood and appreciated her. She thought of him and smiled quietly, feeling the warmth of connection that had grown steadily over the months. He arrived at the market as usual, greeting her with a familiar smile. Their interactions had become the highlight of her days, each moment spent together building trust, understanding, and affection. They talked about simple things at first, the weather, the produce, and daily routines. But over time, their conversations had deepened. They shared hopes, small dreams, and reflections on life, creating a bond that was gentle, steady, and meaningful. She felt a growing sense of ease and happiness in his presence. Something she had not experienced in a long time, they decided to prepare a special meal for the town. Combining their skills and creativity, she spent days planning recipes, choosing ingredients, and arranging tasks. While he helped gather supplies, offered ideas, and assisted in the preparations, the collaboration felt natural and fulfilling, each of them bringing their strengths to the process. She realized that working together had deepened their connection, making their bond stronger and more joyful. The anticipation of sharing the meal with others brought excitement, and she felt a sense of purpose that extended beyond herself. When the day of the meal arrived, the town gathered in a warm, inviting space filled with laughter and conversation. She arranged the dishes carefully, watching as people enjoyed the flavors she had crafted. He stood beside her, helping with logistics and quietly encouraging her, his presence reassuring and steady. The compliments flowed, and she felt pride not just in the food, but in the joy it brought to others. She understood that her cooking was more than a skill. It was a gift that connected hearts, including her own. After the meal, they walked together through the quiet streets, the evening sky painted in soft hues of pink and gold. They talked about the day, the reactions of the community, and the pleasure of sharing experiences together. She felt a gentle happiness, the kind that comes from meaningful connection and shared effort. He listened attentively, offered thoughtful observations, and shared his own reflections, creating a dialogue that was balanced, sincere, and comforting. She realized that this was a love built on understanding, patience, and mutual respect. In the following days, they spent time tending the garden, experimenting with new recipes and sharing simple pleasures. Each activity reinforced their bond, offering moments of laughter, gentle conversation, and shared satisfaction. She noticed the small details he observed, the subtle ways he cared for her, and the life she had built. His kindness was consistent, never rushed, never demanding, but always present. It allowed her to feel safe, valued, and appreciated, encouraging her heart to open fully without fear. One afternoon they sat by the river, watching the water flow and listening to the gentle rustle of leaves. She reflected on the journey that had brought them together, the gradual unfolding of trust, affection, and companionship. She remembered the early days of hesitation, the moments of doubt, and the careful steps they had taken to nurture understanding. Now she felt a quiet certainty that what they shared was genuine and enduring. Her past grief had not been erased, but it had been honored and integrated into a life that could now hold love and joy again. They began planning small trips, visiting nearby towns, exploring nature, and sharing experiences that deepened their understanding of each other. She discovered new joys in these adventures, appreciating his attention to detail, the gentle humor he brought, and the way he made her feel seen and understood. Each moment strengthened the bond between them, showing her that love was not about grand gestures, but about consistency, respect, and shared presence. She felt a profound gratitude for the way he had entered her life and the quiet happiness he brought. As winter arrived, evenings were spent by the fireplace, cooking together, sharing stories, and reflecting on the days. She felt a deep sense of trust and security, knowing that their connection was built on authenticity and care. The past remained a part of her, shaping her character and wisdom, but it no longer dominated her present. She allowed herself to fully experience the warmth, companionship, and love that had grown between them, embracing it as a natural and beautiful part of life. Cooking remained central, but it had become intertwined with the deeper connection they shared. They celebrated simple moments, from a perfectly baked loaf to a shared smile across the kitchen. She noticed the subtle ways he made her life easier, the attentiveness in his gestures, and the quiet joy he expressed in their shared experiences. Each day felt richer and more meaningful, filled with moments that strengthened their bond and created lasting memories. She realized that happiness was built from these small, intentional actions, the gentle rhythms of companionship and mutual care. One evening, while preparing a meal together, they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. She spoke of her gratitude for the support, understanding, and affection he had shown, and he expressed his admiration for her resilience, kindness, and the love she poured into her life. They recognized that their connection had grown from friendship into a deep, lasting love, nurtured by patience, consistency, and shared experiences. It was a love that honored the past while embracing the present and future, creating a sense of stability and joy. The town continued to notice their bond, offering quiet approval and encouragement. She appreciated this support, but understood that the strength of their relationship came from the trust and care they shared privately. It was a connection that required no validation from others, built instead on shared values, respect, and genuine affection. She felt confident in the authenticity of their love and the steady foundation they had created together. Evenings were filled with reflection, gratitude, and planning for the days ahead. She continued to bake, garden, and share her cooking with the community. Finding fulfillment in the simple joys of daily life, the man remained a constant supportive presence, offering encouragement, companionship, and understanding. Their relationship had grown naturally and steadily, evolving into a love that was profound, patient, and enduring. She allowed herself to fully embrace this love, knowing it had been built on trust, care, and shared experience. As the day came to a close, she felt a deep sense of contentment. The past, with its grief and loss, was acknowledged and honored, but it no longer defined her. She had found happiness in companionship, a gentle, steady love that enriched her life and brought joy to her days. Cooking, gardening, and daily routines continued to provide grounding, but they were now enhanced by the presence of someone who truly valued and cared for her. She rested that night with gratitude and hope, looking forward to the future and the many shared moments that waited. The morning air was fresh and crisp as she stepped into her garden, the sun just beginning to rise. The leaves were wet with dew, and the smell of earth and herbs filled her senses. She had grown accustomed to starting her day this way, with quiet moments and careful attention to the life around her. Cooking and gardening had always been her anchors, but now they carried a deeper meaning. Each action felt purposeful, a way to nurture herself and the world around her. She thought of him, his presence in her life, and the gentle way he had become a part of her daily rhythm. He arrived at the market later in the morning, carrying a small basket with fresh produce. Their greetings were warm, familiar, and filled with a sense of ease that had developed over many shared moments. They spoke about the vegetables, the bread, and the plans for the upcoming community gathering. Their conversations flowed naturally, covering small details and meaningful stories alike. She noticed the careful way he listened, the way he remembered little things she had mentioned weeks ago. This attention made her feel valued and understood in ways she had not experienced before. Over the next few days, they spent hours preparing for the gathering. She chose recipes that would be both comforting and enjoyable, while he offered suggestions and lent a hand in every task. The kitchen was alive with activity, flour dusting the counters and the scent of fresh bread filling the room. They moved around each other with an easy familiarity, sometimes working in silence, sometimes exchanging stories and laughter. The work itself was satisfying, but it was the shared effort and quiet companionship that brought her the greatest sense of joy as the day of the gathering approached. She felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness, Hosting an event for the community had always been a responsibility she took seriously. But now it felt even more meaningful with him by her side. He noticed her hesitation and offered reassurance, suggesting small ways to make the preparations smoother and more enjoyable. She appreciated his steady support, the way he seemed to understand her without needing many words. This partnership had grown naturally, quietly strengthening the trust and affection between them. On the morning of the event, she woke early to finish the final preparations. The bread was baking, preserves were arranged neatly, and flowers from her garden adorned the tables. He arrived shortly after, carrying additional ingredients and offering his help without taking over. They worked together in a comfortable rhythm, each aware of the other's needs and contributions. The anticipation built as neighbors began to arrive, their faces lighting up at the sight of the carefully prepared dishes. It was a moment of pride, not for herself alone, but for the shared effort that had created this gathering. As the event progressed, she observed the joy and appreciation on the faces of the community members. Children sampled bread with delighted expressions. Neighbors exchanged compliments and stories, and everyone seemed to enjoy the warmth of the shared space. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, realizing that her cooking and preparation were more than just tasks. They were a way to connect, to bring happiness, and to share a part of herself with the world. He stood beside her, quietly assisting and sharing in the joy of the occasion. His presence was comforting and reassuring, a reminder of the gentle bond they had nurtured. During a brief moment of quiet, she and he stepped outside to the garden. The sun was warm, casting a golden light over the flowers and vegetables. They spoke about the event, the success of the preparations, and the happiness it brought to those around them. She felt a sense of relief and contentment. The nervousness that had accompanied her in the morning replaced by a gentle pride and gratitude. His words were kind, reflective, and filled with admiration, making her feel seen and appreciated not only for her efforts, but for who she was as a person. In the days that followed, their routine continued with a sense of rhythm and balance. They spent mornings in the kitchen, experimenting with new recipes, tending the garden, and sharing quiet meals. Each day offered opportunities for small joys and moments of connection. She found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed since he had entered it. The trust, companionship, and gentle affection that had grown steadily over time. The relationship had become a source of comfort, happiness, and inspiration, providing both stability and joy. They also began to plan small outings, exploring nearby villages, taking walks through the countryside, and discovering new experiences together. These excursions offered fresh perspectives, laughter, and shared discovery. She enjoyed seeing the world through his eyes, noting the thoughtful observations and care he brought to each activity. Their connection deepened with every shared moment, rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and the simple pleasure of being in each other's company. She realized that love did not always require grand gestures, but could thrive in the consistency of attention, patience, and shared experience. One afternoon, while arranging a display of preserves for the market, she reflected on the journey that had brought them together. The past grief remained a part of her, shaping her thoughts and memories, but it no longer held her back. She had learned to integrate those experiences into her life, allowing space for joy, trust, and love. He had become a companion, a partner in both the practical and emotional aspects of her world. Their relationship had grown slowly, carefully, and with intention, creating a foundation that felt secure and enduring. Evenings were often spent in quiet conversation, sharing stories from their past, discussing dreams for the future, and reflecting on the day's events. These moments were not hurried or pressured, but gentle and deliberate, fostering intimacy and understanding. She appreciated the way he listened, the respect he showed for her thoughts, and the patience he exercised in building trust. These qualities made her feel safe and valued, encouraging her to fully embrace the connection they shared. As winter drew closer, the days grew shorter and the nights longer, but their companionship provided warmth and continuity. Cooking together, tending the garden, and planning for upcoming community events became shared rituals that strengthened their bond. She found comfort in the predictable rhythm of these activities, knowing that each day offered an opportunity to nurture both the life she had created and the growing relationship between them. The balance of independence and shared experience was a source of happiness, allowing both to contribute meaningfully while supporting each other.